Afternoon, everybody. I'm going to bring the Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee to order. Today is Wednesday, May 29th, and it is 4 p.m. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chairwoman Patty Smith.
Here.
Vice Chair Shweta Bade.
Here.
Alderman Carl Franco.
Here.
Alderman Mike Seville.
Here.
Alderman Bill Donnell.
Here.
5 present.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to start this afternoon by approving the minutes, 24-0391, approval of the minutes from the Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee meeting that was held on May 15th, 2024.
Second.
Moved to, motion by Alderman Donnell, second by Alderwoman Bade. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that moves forward. We're going to mix up the agenda. If anybody out there has an agenda in their hand, we're going to mix up the agenda a little bit to try to keep items together. So the first, excuse me, do we have, clerk, do we have anyone here for public comment?
No, we do not.
Oh, thank you. Now we're going to mix up the items and get things started. So, are you guys okay? Do you want me to keep going?
We're here, I forget, but Mike can use mine.
Okay. We're going to start with 24-0313, an ordinance amending Chapter 49 of the Code of Ordinance, City of Aurora by modifying the zoning map attached thereto to rezone the property located at 1218 North Lake Street from R1, one-family dwelling district, to B3, business and wholesale, to B3, business and wholesale.
Okay.
And then do you want me to read the second one in with that as well?
Yeah,
The second one to go along with that is 240314, a resolution approving the final plot of Delgadillo subdivision located at 1241 North Lake Street.
Okay, thank you so much. Good to see everyone again. My name is Steven Bravo. I'm a planner with the City Zoning Division. So as we just heard, this is the rezoning and final plat for 1218 North Lake Street. So you can see the parcel map up on the screen there. I'm sure you're all familiar with this property. It's the commercial property at the intersection, southwest corner of West Indian Trail and North Lake Street. So a little bit of background here. And I also want to point out that in addition to the rezoning and the final plat, there's also a major variance for setbacks for the subdivision that the Planning Commission approved last week. So that vote is done, and the rezoning and final plat are coming through now for full City Council. But we can go over these three items really. So a little bit of background, as you can see there are these four separate parcels here. And Tracy, if you want to pull up the zoning map on the next slide, please. So you can see a little bit of the zoning history. The three parcels on that front on Lake Street are all zoned B3, the business and wholesale. And then there's that oddly shaped kind of diamond-shaped R1 property that's zoned R1, which is vacant. So the existing commercial building there is approximately 12,000 square feet, and it's been sitting vacant for a number of years. And south of that, southeast, is an existing parking lot, which is associated with the commercial building. And then there's a small single-family detached structure there. So really the proposal here is to consolidate all of these four parcels into one property, rezone them all to B3 so that the petitioner, who's here and can come up in a moment, can essentially redevelop the property for restaurant and then fill out the remainder of the property for the accompanying 77 parking spaces. And so Tracy, if you want to go back to the very first slide, please. So what you're seeing here is a parcel zoning map that I put together that I think really shows the full scope of the zoning process here. So you can see the thick black outline, which is the one lot subdivision. The exterior property lines. You can see it's been changed from the 4 separate parcels into the one single lot, which is the scope of the final plat. And then also you can see that it's been assigned the B3 business and wholesale. And then you can see going around the property lines, you can see the call outs that show where the setbacks are varied. So I think the most important parts of the setback variance is along the western property line where the B3 business zoning is, the minimum is 20 feet and they're reducing it to 10, similar to that kind of strange little triangular R1 zoning on the Taco Bell property. I'm not sure what the history is there, but we wanted to make the 10-foot setback kind of go along the eastern and western property lines there. Along Old Indian Trail, they reduced that from, I think it says 15 to 10. South of the building where it's adjacent to the northern property line of the 333 Old Indian Trail, they reduced it from 20 to 1 feet. And then along West Indian Trail and North Lake Street, both setback requirements are 30 and they reduced it to 0 because it's obviously built out right there. So I think that's everything for zoning. Tracy, if you want to pull up the site plan real quick. We have the petitioner, I think, has done a really pretty remarkable job of putting together, site plans and building elevations that show the full scope here. So this is how the property will really look after it redevelops. So you can see the 77 parking spaces there. That western curbed parking lot island, that's going to be, what did I say was stormwater detention to help meet the engineering requirements. And then the zoning ordinance has pretty detailed requirements for commercial properties that are adjacent to residential. And on the second page of this PDF, you can see the landscaping. And so they've, again, gone above and beyond what I would say are the minimum requirements to, I would say, screen that residential property to the west. They're also putting in a 6-foot solid fence to meet the front of the adjacent house to help screen further. And then in addition to the existing landscaping, which is remaining. And then the last thing I want to show is the building drawings, Tracy, if you don't mind. So these are drawings that the petitioner has put together that show the exterior of the building, which I think is a pretty nifty cleanup of the building. These aren't what are necessarily going in for permit, but we're asking them, there's a condition on the rezoning that the exterior drawings be consistent with what we're seeing here. And then there's interior drawings, and I want to point out, I actually just noticed this a few minutes ago. The color scheme here actually matches the city logo colors, blue and yellow, so. Thank you. There's still a little bit more though. So it's you can see the restaurant's pretty sharp. I think it'll really add to the intersection there as well as the community. So that's really it. I don't know if there are questions. We do have the petitioner here.
Anyone have questions before the petitioner comes up? Alderman Seville.
Thank you. I think I have a couple questions, and maybe if you can answer them, Steve, maybe it'd be directed towards the petitioner. But one is the B3 zoning. Is that contingent with most of restaurants in Aurora? Are they zoned B3?
I would say B3 or B2.
And there's a reason why we need a higher classification and not a B2?
It's consistent with what's there in the area along Indian Trail. I don't know if Tracy can pull up the zoning map, but along Indian Trail, a lot of those properties are B3, so we thought it would be consistent with what's... So
Taco Bell is B3, and the White Castle is B3, and the Starbucks is B3?
That's, yeah, and then the Starbucks is B2. That might be because of the drive-through. But also you can see on the east side of Lake Street going down, those are B2. But the B3 going west along Indian Trail, I think are consistent with that block.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is because that's a pretty high intensive zoning classification, our highest one, and very most liberal one. And I just have some concerns. I mean, God forbid if this restaurateur moves or leaves, and then they could sell it to an automotive repair shop, and it could be really intensive in the neighborhood. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I think the property is built to meet is developed to meet the minimum parkings for a restaurant. So I think if it were to become commercial, then that would, I think, require more parking. So I don't know that it would be an acceptable use there.
Tracy, did you have something to add to this discussion?
Yeah, obviously, the B3 is already existing out there, so that's why we kept with the B3. A minor auto repair is allowed in the B2 also, so
Yeah.
it's not like that would have, excluded a minor auto repair to go in there.
Mhm.
If this ever was to redevelop, we would, make sure that it would fit with the character of the area.
Sure,
So.
okay,
All
okay.
right.
And in terms of parking spaces, do they anticipate utilizing the amount that we currently have fully with the seating capacity that's currently being proposed in the restaurant?
So your question is if they're meeting the requirement? Or
Yeah, if they're meeting it, and is it too much? That's why I'm.
It's actually right on the dot.
Is it? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And in terms of some of the renderings, which were very beautiful that you pointed out, do they plan on putting outdoor seating on all three sides?
I think it's, maybe we can, petitioner can come, I think it's the site plan was just showing the outdoor seating, maybe like 16 total seats along the eastern frontage.
Mhm.
That was the only place I think it could fit.
Okay, yeah. For those of you who've been around for a while, this used to be the old Howard's property. And they own this whole thing, including the house that we're looking to demolish. That was the grandmother's house. And the house left is 333. That's where the parents and the children lived.
Oh, really? Okay.
And they eventually sold it to Taco Bell, and then Gus Tutulos, who built the current building for a grocery store. But before that, it was a mobile. So this is in keeping with the trend of development, which is consolidation in business. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, we all just got a history lesson on that
And-
corner.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. It was a pretty stable, family-run business, the Howard's Liquors at the time, so you remember.
I remember because the air traffic controllers used to, when they used to get off work at 6 in the morning, used to go to Howard's because it was open to have a beer. So I guess how I remember it. Not that I ever frequented it, but rumor has it.
Yeah, so, okay.
Alderman Seville, are you finished?
I'm
Alderman-
just finished for now, yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
Alderman Donnell?
Yeah, Steve, just a question about how they take deliveries to supply the restaurant. I see there's a door on the north side. Is that what they would use, or is that a question for the petitioner?
Yeah, I think that would be a question for the petitioner, but I believe that, and I think I had it in my staff report, but I might not have gotten to that, but the western, like 4,000 square feet maybe of the building they're planning to use for accessory storage, and I assume deliveries for the restaurant.
Could we bring the petitioner up and go from there? Okay.
Was that the only?
And Alderwoman Bates, she's got a question for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what is the capacity for inside and outside?
For seating?
Yeah, for seating.
The minimum parking is one space per 3 seats, so 77 times 3.
Okay.
I can't do the mental math on the spot like
Okay.
that, but.
I'll do that. Thank you for letting me know.
Good afternoon.
Good evening.
If
Hi.
you could just both state your names, and then you could
Yes.
go ahead and present.
My name is Martha, and this is my daughter, Giselle. Hi, nice to meet
Thank you for
Hi.
being here. Do you have a presentation for us, or you just would like to answer questions?
questions.
Okay, so we're going to go back to Alderman Seville.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
I look forward to having your business in my wards, and wish you much prosperity and luck.
Thank you.
Yeah. In terms of, I just basically, when are you looking to open, hopefully?
This is a long construction, so it's probably 4 to 5 months.
4 to 5 months?
Yes.
And do you currently own a restaurant?
Yes, we do.
And
We own 3 of them.
could you share with us about your restaurants?
Yes, we have one the same restaurant opened in West Chicago. That was the first one. Our second one is in North Carolina, and our third one is in Joliet.
Great.
This will be our fourth one.
Well, North Carolina will be one hard to commute on, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, good. Well, I mentioned the renderings here. They were very beautiful, and if you do even part of what you've outlined
you.
there, it's going to be wonderful, and I'm sure you have much success. So
Thank
look
you.
forward to some rejuvenation on that corner property.
Yeah,
so.
we're looking forward to it too.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Alderman Franco.
So what type of cuisine is this gonna be?
Seafood,
Seafood?
seafood.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Denell.
I guess the same question I asked the staff. So you're gonna use part of that building for storage. How do you access that storage, or how do you access storage for the restaurant?
Our main entrance is gonna be on this, one of the side. It's not gonna be the main, where it's right now, the main entrance, that's gonna be closed down for outdoor seating. So the main entrance will be on the side. And the
North side,
other,
probably.
yeah, and there's a door farther down that's gonna be used for deliveries and,
Will you also have an access on the south side of the building?
Yes.
Closer to the parking?
yes, yes. We're actually gonna have a door right there for, indoors to the kitchen.
Thank
And I'm going to ask again, because I don't know if you were guesstimating, outdoor seating is going to be about 16 people? Thereabouts?
The outdoor seating?
Yes. And it's just on the one side?
It's one side
Okay.
only, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's only one side.
If you don't know exactly, that's okay.
I
It doesn't have to
don't,
be.
Yeah, I think we do on the site plan show the outdoor seating, if Tracy's able to pull that up.
Shows 4 tables.
Yeah, it shows 4 tables.
Yeah,
and
with
it-
4
and-
seats
yeah.
each.
So
That's,
it'd
is that what you're seeing on the
Yeah.
plans? So it's 16 seats, yeah.
Okay.
right.
Do we have any other questions?
Motion to approve.
I'm going to go through these, each of these items. If we have no other questions, then we'll go from there, okay? So, thank you. You guys
Thank
may
you.
be seated. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Best of luck to you. 24-0313. May I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Alderman Seville, a second.
Second.
Second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? This item moves forward. The second item is 24-0314.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The item moves forward. I'm going to move on now to, let me find 3. Item number 240367, an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for a telecommunication facility used at the establishment of modified standards on Lot 1 of Cyber 1 subdivision, Phase 2, located at 2905 Deal Road. I'm going to read 4 of these together, and then we'll break them apart.
Actually, this is just the one.
Just ones. That's,
Yep.
you want me to stop here then?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Tracy Basic, Senior Planner with the Zoning and Planning Division. The subject property is currently, and I do have the website, the thing up, okay. The subject property is currently the site of Cyrus One Data Center Campus, which is located at the southwest corner of Deal and Eola Road. The property is currently zoned ORI C with office, research, light industrial with a conditional use for telecommunication facility. The existing tower is completely full and it cannot structurally hold any more additional antennas. Therefore, the petitioner is requesting approval of a conditional use for an additional telecommunication facility on the subject property. The request includes the construction of a 300-foot tower directly south of the existing 350-foot tower on the east side of the building along Eola Road. The conditional use for the tower is required as this is within the I-88 technology corridor. In addition, with a conditional use, the petitioner can also request the establishment of modified standards by waiving or reducing the burden on the application pursuant to Chapter 19. The petitioner does have a presentation for you, so I can turn it over to them to give the presentation unless you have any questions for me.
So I know we spoke before we started, so this presentation you have right now is just on this particular item?
Correct.
Okay.
Good evening. Russ Whitaker, Rosenhoven Whitaker, here this evening on behalf of Cyrus One as the owner of the data center campus at 2905 Deal Road in Aurora. For those of you who may not be familiar with Cyrus One is a private Dallas-based company with 32 data centers across the country and over 50 globally. Kind of working through some of the details pretty quickly here. Tracy kind of introduced the campus. The existing campus consists of about 32 acres. There's actually 3 data center campus buildings on them. Construction was began back in 2015, 2016 when Cyrus bought the facility. You have the building on the east side of the campus was building 1, and you see a second building which is sort of attached to that first building, which was built shortly thereafter, and then the third building located here, which is relatively new vintage. At this point in time, we're pretty well leased up, fully occupied at the data center, and so we're working on a second case, which will be before you in just a minute. But as we continue to look at this property, there's an existing cell tower that is located on the campus. That tower is used for communication exclusive with the data center campus. We have agreements by which we site antennas on the cell tower, and those antennas connect directly into the data center building, providing equal access for customers utilizing those antennas. As Tracy mentioned, the existing tower is full. We know there's need for additional users. The only way to be able to provide equal access to those users is to build a second tower. So you see the first tower here in this image. When we look at the site plan here, you can see the existing tower is depicted sort of a grayscale rectangle here, which is the pad that the tower sits on, and then the triangular structure is the actual tower. What we're showing here is just to the south of that, we are proposing a second tower. Existing tower is 350 feet tall, second tower will be 300 feet tall, so just slightly shorter than the existing tower. The goal for locating the tower here is, again, to make sure that the connections into the data center building are equal between both towers, so there's no advantage for market participants who are looking for access into the data center building. Just a closer image of those 2 tower pads that would be sited. You can see that the structure of the towers is similar. These are triangular structures with a connection, the bridge connection here and here, which will provide access for data back into the data center building. A couple images of the existing tower. So you can see kind of the image on the right shows the antennas on the existing tower. Image on the left just gives a full view of the tower. Again, the tower we're proposing now is 300 feet, so it's going to be 50 foot shorter than this tower. Will be located immediately adjacent. Construction, everything else will be very similar to what you see in this image. Kind of going back to an aerial view here, not necessarily great, but you can see the tower being located in this area here. That tower is roughly 300 feet of separation from Deal Road. I think that separation and some of the intervening landscaping really helps to buffer the tower. It's not something that is predominant in your view when you're on Deal Road or even even when you're on the northern road or along the tollway. With that buffer, these are a couple images off of Street View. Frankly, with the buffer, you don't see much of the data center campus itself. They did a nice job of inserting landscaping. That landscaping's grown up over a period of time. You can see the tower in the background, but again, when you're driving down Deal Road, it's not a large tower that you see as sort of the immediate thing in your vision. It's the pond, it's the trees, it's all of the landscaping. There's a large setback, and so the tower sort of blends into the background. A couple of other perspective images. So two different, we've got the picture that shows the existing tower, and then we've mocked in the proposed 300-foot tower. The map on the right shows you the perspective of where this view would be taken from. So here, we're just north of the data center campus on Deal Road. And you can see one of the nice things about the co-location of the towers is from the north and from the south. You don't necessarily see the two towers, but the two towers will kind of blend together. When we move further along Deal Road, just by way of perspective, you can see that the towers begin to blend into the background. A little bit further, almost 3,000 feet northwest on Deal Road, you see that the trees and everything else begin to the towers begin to fade into the background. Here we're at Mustang Way, so we're south of the subject property. I would point out in this image that these towers are not unique to this area. There are the transmission lines that are immediately adjacent. They're not actually 300 feet tall, but I think just by way of the perspective, because those transmission towers are closer, they look like they're similar height to those towers, to the cellular towers. Here again, this is from within the neighborhood, and as we're showing here, due to the close proximity of the towers and the orientation of the towers, you really don't see that second tower from this location to the south. Kind of a quick summary there. We did a longer form presentation at Planning Commission. If you've got additional questions or concerns, be happy to get into those details with you, though.
I have a quick question. Since you're making these two towers very similar, why didn't you just build another 350?
I think the 350 wasn't necessary, and so the cost of the tower is significant. The steel quotient of the tower is substantial, and so I think where we could build slightly lower, I think it was just financially beneficial.
Okay, and adequate.
And adequate,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alderman Franco.
So the conditional use process allows for the going above the 200 feet, which I guess is standard. Are there any federal FAA regulations that get involved with this with towers like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked quite a bit about that at Planning Commission. So there will be a number of regulations that the towers comply with. In this case, we have an existing tower, so we've got a pretty good idea of everything that's going to be applicable here. And coming out of the Planning Commission meeting, we did some additional research. I've got tower consultants here, so I can bring them up if there's more detailed questions. But by way of example, there will be a beacon at the top of the tower. There will be beacons at the midpoint of the tower, around about the midpoint of the tower. That is very similar to the setup of the existing tower. Having the existing tower, we know that one was not required by the FAA to be painted. If you drive 294, you might see that some towers like this are painted orange and white because the FAA allowed us to maintain the galvanized nature of the existing tower. We believe that will be permitted in the same fashion. There are all kinds of other FCC and FAA regulations that apply to these towers, and we will be complying with those regulations.
So you'll get your compliance from us, then you have to deal with these other entities, and then it all comes together type of thing. But you feel comfortable based on what you've had already that you can easily comply with it because you've already done it?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And really where we're not complying with some regulations is specific provisions of the Aurora Code that talk about separation by way of example. So of course we're locating two towers on a property. Generally speaking, the Aurora Code talks about like depending on the height of the tower, there's different separation requirements. So we might have a 3,000-foot separation requirement. Here, obviously, we can't meet a 3,000-foot separation requirement because of the unique nature of the towers and the need to provide equal access into the data center campus. So we're very strategically locating those towers in close proximity.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Bade.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Thank you for the presentation. If you outgrow the second tower, will you have space for the third one, or what happens in such situations?
Well, the next case that we're going to talk about is going to be a new data center campus for Cyrus One. And the new data center campus for Cyrus One is in a similar vein. Is a couple of buildings. It's 2 buildings on that property, and then there are also 2 towers associated with that campus for the exact same purpose, that we have the equal access and the direct connection of those towers into the data center building. So we do not foresee that there's any need for additional towers at this campus.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions on this particular item?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderwoman Bade, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion moves forward. Thank you so much. We'll see you again in just a
Thank you.
minute. Next item is 24-0348, an ordinance approving an amendment to the plan description for the Butterfield Planned Development District on 32.08 acres of property located at 2725 Bilter Road, being south of Bilter Road, west of Eola Road, and north of intersection 88. And I'm going to go ahead and do all 3 of these, okay? Next item is 24-0385, an ordinance granting a conditional use permit for the telecommunication facility 4211, use and the establishment of modified standards on the property located at 2725 Bilter Road, being south of Bilter Road, west of Viola Road, and north of Interstate 88. And the third one is 0386, a resolution approving a preliminary plan and plot for the Butterfield Phase 2 Unit B 5B on vacant land located at 2725 Bilter Road, being south of Bilter Road, west of Eola Road, and north of Interstate 88.
Thank you, Chairwoman, for reading all of that. Jill Morgan, Senior Planner with Zoning and Planning. I am going to just briefly introduce the 3 items, and then I'll turn it over to the petitioner who has a presentation. So as was stated, this is requesting an approval amendment to the plan description of the Butterfield Planned Development District. It includes a revision to permit an additional use and some additional minor variations to allow for the development of a data center campus. The approval allows a 3,300 warehouse distribution and storage services use in the form of a data center only. All other uses that fall under the warehouse storage services would still be excluded on this property. Concurrently, the petitioner is also requesting a conditional use for a telecommunication facility use and the establishment of modified standards. The details of the request include, as Russ has already mentioned, 2 telecommunication facilities. Specifically, they're 350-foot non-guide tower structures with associated antennas and communication support facilities. The one is located near the northern property line, approximately 199 feet from the northern property line, 140 feet from the eastern. And the second one is located at the southeast corner of the property, approximately 185 feet from the closest property line. And this conditional use is requesting modified standards from Chapter 19 as the petitioner will outline. The petitioner is also requesting the approval of a preliminary plan and plat for the data center campus. It's approximately 32 acres. It will be constructed in 3 phases. The first phase will be approximately 411 square foot building, along with 2 generator yards and the 2 towers associated with the project. The second phase is for a completion of a utility substation to support the data center. And the third is a future approximately 153 square foot new building that's right adjacent to the first building. So they look like almost an addition. I do want to note as well in your packet that staff received one letter with comments from the DuPage Forest Preserve, which is included in the Legistar for both the PDD and the conditional use, as they had comments about both items. Is there any questions for staff before I
Any
hold the
questions
floor
for
the
staff
petitioner?
before we hear from the petitioner? Alderwoman Bade?
Thank you, Chairwoman. Jill, what's the plan for the narrow strip?
To the west?
Yeah,
No developments planned for it.
so it'll be just fenced in that area.
Yeah, this.
Yes, I think it will have just a fence if I recall.
And the retention pond?
Not even a fence, I think it's just gonna be open as is. So we'll kind of remain basically as is.
And the water body will be maintained by city or
Which,
the water body next to the site?
it's maintained
I
by
think it's a
whoever currently
retention
owns, and I
pond over
can't
there.
remember if that's a city retention pond or not.
The petitioner's shaking his head no.
No, okay.
Okay,
So maybe Russ can
Yeah,
answer that.
yeah.
I'm not certain.
I have a question as well, but I'll wait and probably be better for the petitioner. Anyone else have a staff question? Alderman Franco?
So I'm going to address this letter from the Forest Preserve. When they make a recommendation of 199 feet, and we're going 300 to 350 feet, whatever the case may be, way above, what does that mean to us? What is that a mandate, or it's just like, this is what we like to see, do what you need to do, but this is best practice? How do we factor that in?
So they provided a letter. The letter I felt kind of read, these are the kind of best practices. I did tell them they are more than welcome to come, make any argument, any discussion, present to the board or planning commission. No one has came to the meetings. As you can see, we have a lot of kind of in this area, larger than 200 feet towers. So I guess I took it as this best practices.
Okay.
But they did not come forward to have any major concern in person about it.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
thank you.
Alderman Seville?
Yes, I'd just like to add to that. I don't remember, as you mentioned, we do have a lot of towers in the area, and I've never seen a letter from this organization on any of them until now. Is that
Correct.
true?
That is true. This is probably maybe the only one that they would have received public notification
Okay.
about within the 250 feet.
Okay, thank you.
And let's get the petitioner back up.
Just
Go ahead.
one question for Jill. They did mention the lights, and I believe that's controlled by the FCC. I don't believe we have any say on the intensity or the color of the lights. That's more for the air traffic guys.
Correct, and I believe that was also brought up Planning and Zoning Commission, and that was, and Russ might be able to cover that as well, that was kind of regulated by the FCC.
Thank you.
Just hitting on that Forest Preserve District issue. In the last 5 years, I've happened to work on 4 or 5 projects next to the Forest Preserve, and I've had unfortunate circumstances where we've received a letter from the Forest Preserve District like 2 hours before we go to a public hearing. So I had communicated with city staff early on and said, hey, listen, Forest Preserve's next door. Let's see if we can flush out if they have any questions or concerns so that we don't find out about it 2 hours before a public hearing. I specifically reached out. I offered to go meet with them. I offered to walk through stuff. I suggested a meeting. They declined to do that. They gave me a copy of the letter. They said they wouldn't be showing up, and that's sort of been the element of the communication. I think what was reflected in the Forest Preserve's letter is that there's some U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service recommendations on towers, and that they be limited to 200 feet, because if they're over 200 feet, they could impact birds in some way, shape, or form. But these are point-to-point communication antennas. So these are not cellular antennas, right? If this was a cellular antenna, it'd be a shotgun type approach, right? We're pushing the signal out and we're trying to reach everybody's cell phone. This is the opposite. We're not trying to reach people on the ground. We have an antenna here and we've got an antenna here, and we're shooting a beam between those antennas to communicate with those two antennas. So fundamentally, we need to get height in order to communicate with the receiving antenna. So the 350 feet that we're requesting here is based on studies that have been done in order to communicate with antennas that are on the receiving end. So functionally limiting the towers to 200 feet would render the towers completely useless. So understanding that there are kind of competing federal regulations that we're dealing with. The FAA says one thing, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife says the other thing. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife stuff is recommendations. We're not able to do that in this application. We are complying with all FAA requirements, which of course do govern the lights. So we did look, and the lights that are on the existing tower on Deal Road are the lowest lumen light that we could install on the tower. We looked at the possibility of shielding that light from the ground level so that it created less disturbance. We were told absolutely not. Snow can build up on a shield, birds can nest on a shield, and that can result in some obstruction of the light. We're obviously concerned about planes and life safety, so that is of highest priority. So we'll be installing lights that are of similar intensity to the existing lights per FAA regulations. The one thing that did kind of come out as a good suggestion at the Plan Commission meeting is there was a question about timing or syncing of the lights. We did investigate that, and due to the type of equipment that will be installed here, we are able to sync the lights. So rather than having blink, 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 both lights on the towers will blink synchronously. So I think that was sort of a net benefit coming out of the Plan Commission meeting. Seemed to be the discussion point there, so I figured I'd knock it out right away.
And I just want to go back to something you said originally. You were kind of the impetus for this letter, because had you not reached out to them, we may not have received the letter. They didn't reach out to you, you reached out to them.
Absolutely.
And then they didn't follow up, there was no passion, there was nothing like this is, it almost sounds as though we have to send this letter out now that they told us, and let's move on. I'm trying to capsulize this.
They own nearby property. They would have received notice. I believe that when they received notice, they probably would have sent a letter.
Okay.
That's based on my personal experience. So before that happened, I wanted to facilitate a conversation. I requested on multiple occasions a meeting and was told that a meeting was unnecessary and that they were sending this letter, and that was the end of the communications.
Okay, thank you.
So you had alluded to some land that's going to be preserved for future. Are you going to talk about that in your presentation?
Yep.
Okay, then I'll wait until here.
All right.
before I
Well,
go further.
Russ Whitaker, Rosenhoven Whitaker on behalf of Cyrus One. So just a quick site map here so we understand proximity to the sites. I think I was blocking Eola and Deal when I was talking about the last one. I kept referencing Deal, but we've got Eola as the north-south, Deal is the east-west here. We're just north of the tollway. You can see the relative proximity to the site, which is part of what makes this site very attractive for Cyrus One in terms of efficiency of operations and being able to have tenants between the two sites. Amendments to the plan description, Jill sort of touched on this. This is kind of hyper-technical detail that's in your packet. What I want to do is go through the site plan. If you have specific questions regarding the amendments to the plan description, I'd be happy to revisit it. Site plan here, a couple of things I would point out. If anybody's been to the Cyrus One campus or driven past the Cyrus One campus, security is paramount. This is a high security facility. You cannot drive up, but drive in and walk around, right? Or turn around. And that is exactly what I'm going to get to. Security is paramount. It is manned security. I was there a couple weeks ago. There's biometric sign-offs, all kinds of stuff to get into this facility. We were working within an existing environment. There was an existing building when Cyrus bought the original campus in 2016. And so a little bit constrained in what they could do from a security standpoint. We've sort of fixed those problems with the design here, which is what I wanted to go through. So we have primary access at this location off of Bilter. That is 1 lane in, 2 lanes out. From a function standpoint, we will have security fence around the perimeter of the site. It's hard to see on this scale, but you can kind of pick it up here, running around the campus. The security fence will be inside of the easternmost road, but outside of this western road my cursor's on right now. The goal is that the secure campus will be the buildings, and that we will have roadway circulation all the way around the campus in this fashion. This easternmost access point is intended really for two functions. One, it is providing access for ComEd. So there's a substation that will be constructed to the rear of the property. That substation is going to be outside of the fenced perimeter of the Cyrus One data center. That way, if ComEd needs to get into the substation, ComEd can get into the substation. They can manage their people accordingly. The substation will absolutely be fenced. We'll look at that in just a minute. But there is individual separate access for ComEd to get into their substation. The second component of this is you see this secondary lane here where we cannot operate a turnaround on the Deal Road campus. The goal here was to create a rejection lane. So we will have a security checkpoint in this location here. If someone is not permitted into the facility, they don't have the credentials, we didn't know they were coming, they will be asked to leave the campus, and this exit lane will be what facilitates their efficient exit from the campus without ever going through a security gate. We did some investigation of this. It happens very, very rarely. We believe it's on order of magnitude once a month that somebody might be rejected from the campus. In terms of ComEd operations, we also coordinated with ComEd because we're trying to dial in and figure out what the function was going to be on that eastern access. ComEd says that they would, outside of emergency operations, they would expect that they would have someone on site accessing that substation about once every 6 weeks. So we're talking order of magnitude, a car and a half a month using that eastern access. The eastern access, and the reason I bring this up is there's some existing restrictions on the property relating to the adjacent tollway ramp. We're already in communication with the tollway regarding that eastern access and the limited use of the eastern access. We've had good conversations with them. We believe that due to the limited nature of that eastern access, it will be permitted as drawn. So that kind of runs a little bit through function of the site. As Jill mentioned, we have two buildings. I think she said 411 square feet. It's actually 411,000 square feet, so a little bit bigger there. The second building is 153,000 square feet, so about 550,000 square feet in total data center. I would note that with the primary building, there's a parking field that will serve that building one. We're looking at building two would be in this location immediately adjacent to building one. You can see there's also a secondary parking field that could be constructed at the time of building two. Loading is going to occur to the rear and adjacent to the substation. I would call out that the building is the white area on the plan. I would call out that there are generator yards to the north and to the south of the building. Elevation of the building. The thought process here is this is very modern technology we're dealing with. The goal was to create an architectural facade that was sort of befitting of the nature of the use of the building. So what we've got is, frankly, an industrial building, a large-scale industrial building. It's 550,000 square feet between the two buildings. So there's a lot of precast that's being used. That's an important component because temperature control is very, very important inside of a data center. We can't have temperatures escalating. We've got to maintain a nice cool and quiet environment inside the building. So we don't want a bunch of punched openings in this building. It is industrial by nature, but where we've got some forward-facing facades, this is the northeast corner of the building along Bilter Road. We would expect a lobby entrance in this location, and then we would also expect some tenant office space in this location. So if you've ever visited the Deal Road campus, it's a similar setup where we have a main lobby space in building two. That is the very glass, very modern sort of community-facing portion of the building. But if you look at Building 1 is very much an industrial box. If you look at Building 3 is very much an industrial box with a very small architectural facade to it, which is more of the glass. So where we're actually using that glass, where we've got the employee components of the building, we're adding the glass and sort of leaning into those components. I would note that the darker material on the building is a metal panel material, so that we think that's a nice add to create some architectural interest in the building. Underneath, hard to read here, but the bottom of that facade is going to be wood paneling. And I think the more interesting is that you can almost see the light along the bottom side of that black facade, but this is conceptualized as an LED string along that bottom facade. You can kind of pick it up here too, that would add some light and additional character to the elevation of the building. Again, really leaning in to that modern character of the building. Back at the site plan here, we talked a little bit about the fencing of the substation. So this is a 12-foot fence. It's actually a 10-foot wall with a 2-foot fence atop it. This is a standard ComEd detail. I think we've got a picture of it in application here. So here's a ComEd substation. It's that same wall or fence detail around the perimeter of the substation. The substation is going to be located between our building and I-88. Staff wanted to see sort of a dressed-up elevation for that substation, and this is ComEd's response to that. And you can see that that wall would go along the south facade, the east facade, and the west facade of the substation. Internal to our site, we would not have that same wall component, but would have some other fence element, which would be a downgraded material because it's facing internally to the site. No one's going to see that from surrounding right-of-way. Towers. So Jill mentioned there are 2 towers. Tower 1 is located north of the building in this location. Tower 2 is located south of the building in this location. I would call out one small difference is that when we saw the image of the towers on Deal Road, there was no additional structure associated with the tower. If you look closely, there is a small building that is associated with each tower. That will be all of the communications equipment for each of the towers. So the antennas will connect down to that building, and that building will then connect underground into the data center. So I just wanted to call that out as really the one functional difference between the towers at Deal Road and the towers here at Bilter Road. Here are the tower elevations. North Tower, South Tower, both towers are 350 feet. What you're looking at here is functioning the same as what you see at Deal Road. These are the variances or the modifications that we have from the Chapter 19 telecommunication requirements. So I had mentioned previously that it's a lot about setbacks. So here you can see that we're requesting 130 feet to the perimeter of the property, and that we've got waivers of things, for example, for 2 on-site towers. And then that the building at the base of the tower I mentioned is slightly larger than what would be permitted by code. It's 1,500 square feet. I think code allows half of that or something, but that is the space that we believe is necessary to accommodate the towers. I did want to talk a little bit about landscape. So this is kind of a very busy plan and maybe a little bit difficult to read, but hopefully addresses a couple of questions here. So we have detention basins kind of built around the perimeter of the property. I would note that this property was part of a 1975 PUD. So detention was originally provided or supposed to be provided for the site off-site. We're providing additional detention on this site to make sure we hit applicable standards in today's environment. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate detention basins, which are the darker color. Around the perimeter of the property. That's going to help create some additional setback. The other thing I would note is there's a pretty significant tree line that's going to be built around the entire perimeter of the property. So if we think back to the last Deal Road case, while we don't always have a 300-foot setback like we did on Deal Road, We do have substantial landscape that's being incorporated into this plan. As that landscaping begins to mature, I think this building very much will blend into the background and will not be something that's predominant either from the tollway, the ramp, or from Bilter Road. So I would just point out, looking at a couple of specific details, that along the south here, there's an existing line of trees. Those trees are all evergreen trees that were installed a couple years ago as part of some tollway improvement, probably when the Eola ramp was built. Those are probably 12, 15-foot tall evergreen trees that are actually located on a berm. Those trees are planted about 7 feet over the elevation of the tollway. So if you're driving down the tollway, you see those trees, and you frankly do not see this property in the background. So that's part of an existing screen. I would note that we're doubling down on that. So you can see here another line of trees. So these are primarily overstory deciduous trees. So we're going to get taller in structure than the evergreen trees. But you can see that it's a double row with trees on the property line and then a second row of trees behind it. And this is where we kind of get into a bunch of layers on top of layers, right? Because I look at the detention basin, and there's another row of trees on the back side of the detention basin, a row of trees on this side and this side of the detention basin, and then additional trees along the line of the building. So lots that we're doing with landscape here. I don't want to say that we're trying to necessarily hide the building, but we're complying with the city's codes. And one thing that the city's codes do well is require significant landscape. I think we went through it at the Plan Commission meeting. If you look at the table on the right, I think we're installing 525, 550 trees on this 32-acre property. I think I mentioned that the other campus was 32 acres. It's actually 48. This is the one that's 32 acres. So again, just as a reminder, this is the landscape that is adjacent to the Deal Road campus. When you think about the layers of landscaping that we're providing on the Bilter Road campus, I think it's more substantial than what you frankly have at the Deal Road campus. So you can see that there is a large white industrial building to the rear of those trees, but can you see that building? Can you understand the architectural elements of the building? You cannot. Because of all of the landscaping that is intermittent. So that sort of takes us through it. I've got a couple other slides. It's on a different PowerPoint if we want to pull it up and talk some more about elevations, landscaping, and things like that. But I'll turn it over to you and see if I can answer any questions for you.
I have a question. I think this one might be for Mr. Alexandru. So when we build these data centers, there's always a revenue source of some sort. They bring to us various taxes. Do we know about what ballpark that may be with when this is completed?
We obviously will get property taxes and we'll get utility taxes when it is fully built out. It will be comparable. I don't know that we have final numbers, but it will be comparable to a certain extent to the edge development across the street in terms of the type and the volume. But if I could also, I just want to thank the petitioner. They've been very, very proactive and cooperative, and I just noticed the landscape plan when I walked in. We spent a lot of quality time there, and I think the whole point was to really make this sort of blend in. You know, you've got, as you come in, you've got the forest preserve to the east, and so I think this is really going to enhance the property so it doesn't just look and stand out. So, but revenue is a large part of this, sure. Especially on the utility tax side. Right. I don't know, Russ, if we did do any prelim numbers or.
I think the other data center you're talking about, Alex, was like 4.2 million estimate type coming in, so something along those lines.
We've got petitioner.
Brad Hout with Cyrus One.
Thank
Thank you for your time today. In terms of utility tax side, I think we looked at our current monthly utility tax we pay on our existing campus is around $90,000 a month, I believe. And so this having similar, if not more, utility usage would be on par with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Too glad you're not paying that bill.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bay.
Thank you for the detailed presentation.
Sure.
I will go over that question again. What's the plan for the narrow strip? Are there going to be more trees or fenced out?
So when you say narrow strip, are we talking to the east or are we talking to the west?
Should be the west one.
So in this location here, so our property is delineated here. I mean, you can pretty well see the bounds of our property. So there will be a stormwater basin here. So that will be depressional. It will be planted with native plants, so it will be a wetland bottom basin. You have wetlands on the forest preserve property, which is immediately to the further to the west. And so then we have the basin, and then we have trees being planted on the three sides of the basin.
Okay.
And so that is all on Cyrus property. That would be all maintained by Cyrus in perpetuity.
Okay. So will the server cooling system be similar to the existing building, the older building?
Yes. To the existing campus on Deal Road, yes.
Okay.
So, and I would, just on that point, I would note that that is another item that we're working with staff on. So we've got lots of things going on with staff right now. There were some noise issues.
Yes.
We think they kind of originally stemmed from the generators. So we've been in the process of developing a plan to do an acoustic screen wall for the generators on Building 3 on the existing campus. However, we didn't want to stop there. So we've hired a consultant and they've done an acoustic review of the entire campus on Deal Road. The goal being, is there anything on the roof or are there cooling towers or are there other elements that are generating noise that are going to be the cause of complaints? And if so, how do we begin to address those? So I think in your packet, you probably see one of the conditions to the approval of this case is that we are working with a sound expert who is doing that modeling for the new campus. So what they're doing is they're looking at inputs. What is the equipment we're using on this new campus? And then what would be the sound generated by that equipment? And then what is the sound that would be expected to be heard at the property line, or applicable distances that need to be measured, the receiving end of a house, by way of example. And so we have committed that we will do whatever sound attenuation is required as part of our building permit, as part of our construction, in order to make sure that we comply with Illinois Pollution Control Board standards for sound mitigation.
Okay. And any plans for solar panels?
No, but that's a good question. And when I did a tour of the facility the other day, there was a similar question answered. So the scale of the power being used on this campus is such that to say it would be a drop in a bucket is probably an understatement. It'd be a drop in Lake Michigan. This is what's the total megawatts of this project? 90 megawatts. So this is 90 megawatts. On order of magnitude, that's probably 1,000 acres worth of solar panels.
Wow.
The property itself is only 32 acres. So putting solar and the roofs of these facilities will be largely improved with cooling and other equipment used for the operation. So there's not wide open spaces on the roof where you could even put in solar panels.
Okay.
So
I have a few more. I have
a few more.
Yeah. How many permanent jobs are anticipated at this location?
A minimum of 20. So we don't know exactly. It depends a little bit on the users. So Cyrus One is the developer. They're an owner of the building. It's kind of a real estate company. And then there would be individual tenants who would occupy space in here. They would have their computers here. And so the number of employees at the campus would depend on exactly the operation of those tenants. Cyrus does have a team of employees at the Deal Road campus. There's a whole slew of engineers on that campus, union employees. They were sitting in a large room with, 20 monitors on the wall, managing stuff that made no sense to me. So there are jobs, minimum of 20, but it will probably be more than that.
It's good to know. And expected completion date?
26? Q4 26.
Okay.
for the first phase.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Denell?
That's-
I just have, I'm curious now that Alderman Beatty asked a question. If you go to the overall map showing the existing data center campus, it's like the second slide, and you look up at your north site, you will see a little bit of a tail of a property, and now I'm just curious what that is.
Yeah, and I see that in the slide here. That does not show up on any of our, does that show up on our plats or engineered plan, Taylor?
Can-
There, it's a path is what I'm being told.
I
So
was
the
talking
existing
about
prairie
that,
path?
Yeah, it's, so,
It doesn't show up on here.
Yeah.
Right there, it's not there.
yeah, I'll tell you, I had not noticed that. It doesn't show up when you look at our technical plans. We'll do some additional looking at that.
Yeah,
We'll be back
it'd
at
be great. And
committee of the whole, and we'll get you answers.
let us know,
Absolutely.
is it still gonna be used or
We
replaced?
wouldn't be doing anything to change the use of it.
Well, it looks like some of it's on your property, so that's.
Understood.
The second question, when you're talking about generators, is that only used if a power failure? Or do you use those generators to kind of bump up the power?
Only used in the event of a power failure. However, because we need to know that those generators are operational, I think it's about once a month that those generators would be operated in order to make sure that everything is in order in the event there were a power failure.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
One
No?
more question. Just one more. Since you mentioned you test these generators, is there any specific schedule that you follow? Because again, the other data centers, some of the residents, they randomly hear it during daytime, so we can let them know this happens once in a month and this is their schedule.
We could follow up and get you an answer on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe, thank you so much for all of the information. That was a lot of great information, and looking forward to that. So I'm going to go to item number 24-0384. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Denell. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That item moves forward. 24-0385.
So moved.
Motioned by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That moves forward. And lastly, 24-0386.
So moved.
Second.
Motioned by Alderman Franco, second by Alderwoman Bate. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That item moves forward. Now we will move on to item number 0403, a resolution approving a final plan on the lot of Meadow Lakes Unit 26, Phase 1, re-subdivision located at 758 Shoreline Drive for a daycare, 6310 use Little Blossoms Montessori School, 24-0403/NA 29/4-24-196-5PN-EF- Ward 8. Do we have a presentation?
Hello.
Hi there.
My name is Emma Field. I'm with Zoning and Planning. I'm the new associate planner. Sorry about that long ending to that. I'm going to take that out. So a little background on this proposal here. The property is located at 758 Shoreline Drive, and it's currently zoned PDD, Planned Development District, and is currently in the Fox Valley East PDD. The petitioner is requesting an approval of a 2,499 square foot addition to the existing building, which will be added to the northwest portion of the property. In addition, the petitioner will be adding / extending the play space that's on the northwest side of the addition, and extending the fence that is existing there to be 4-foot high ornamental fence to look like the existing one. In addition, they will be adding and moving their 6-foot trash enclosure to the parking lot on the northwest island of the parking lot. They will also be adding 13 striped parking spaces to the south portion of the parking lot, and adding a curb with a curb drainage, a little island that is on the southwest corner of the parking lot. And this will come to a total of 37 parking spaces, with 2 handicap spaces being included in that 37. As part of the final plan, they had a landscape plan submitted, and they will be adding additional landscaping. And then they also submitted building elevations, and the petitioner is using similar split face CMU, which will match the existing building.
Anyone have any questions here on this for staff? Any staff questions? It looks good. It all looks nice and neat, put together. When will this begin? Would you like to come up and introduce yourself? Thank you.
Hi there, Eric Witt, Torch Architecture. The owner is in the process of bidding at the moment. They're looking to start their interior renovations shortly, and then the addition may be the end of this year, but beginning of next year is more likely.
And you'll be able to stay open during the
Absolutely.
during the process.
Yep, that's
Okay.
yeah, it's a phased renovation so
Sure.
that they can stay open.
Anyone have any further questions? Yeah, Alderman
How many
Seville.
extra students do you anticipate?
Oh, let's see, I think it's 15, 16, and 16, so 32, 47 students, 8 to 9 additional teachers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Wish you well.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion by Alderman Seville, second by Alderman Franco. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This item moves forward. Thank you so much. The last item today is 24-0407, a resolution approving a revision of the final plat on Lot 1 of PDA re-subdivision located at 3055 East New York Street for offices, businesses, professional, including medical clinics use. Why is use capital?
Good afternoon. So this project is a final plan revision. Back, I believe it was 2017, Waterleaf came forward with the new building, and this is now they're bringing forward some additions. So the proposal is for the current addition being proposed is 1,804 square feet. It's being added to the northwest corner of the building where the patio currently is located. The patio will be relocated to the south of the addition. And then there's another approximate 4,000 square foot addition that's a future possible addition. The parking lot is not being changed because they had already planned for future additions when they built the 2 parking lots. And the 2 current parking lots meet the requirements with both additions. And they are adding some additional landscaping around the foundations, but the overall site landscaping was already planned with the original construction. The architect for the petitioner is here, so if there's any questions, they are, I know, already in for building permits, so they are planning on moving forward quickly with this project.
Any questions for staff or the petitioner?
So moved.
Can the petition, is the petitioner here?
It's the architect for the petitioner?
Yes.
Yes.
Maybe they can just
Yes,
introduce,
you want to come up?
since they're here.
Hi, my name's Randy Prine. I'm the architect of record on the project. Really, there's not a whole lot to tell. We're putting this addition on to create some additional offices for the clerical staff of the clinic, 2 exam rooms, and 1 additional doctor's office. The addition will pretty much look seamless. It'll match the existing building. And as Jill had said, we're building in an area that was previously approved with the original project for future expansion. So we're playing within those boundaries. The patio that was mentioned is being moved because staff likes to have lunch outside when it's nice. So we're recreating that for them. just moving it little closer to the parking lot.
Thank you, thank you. Any other, we do have a motion in the second already. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm sure we'll be seeing more of you.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Manny.
Alderman Franco motioned, Alderman Seville seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's all we have today in front of the BZNE. We
Motion to
don't have
adjourn.
any closed session, and motion to adjourn by Alderman Franco, second by Alderman Seville. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.